An Apache had night of love with a virgin, and 3 years later he sees her with a son. Tay rode hard across the alien plains, the wind whipping his dark hair as his horse's hooves struck sparks from the jagged rocks. The twin moons cast pale light over the desert, making the sand shimmer silver. He had been tracking a band of alien raiders for 2 days, following their trail through canyons and rocky ridges. Every sense was alert, eyes scanning, ears listening for even the faintest sound. But tonight the storm came faster than expected. Clouds rolled over the sky like a dark wave, and lightning streaked across the horizon. Tay knew he could not outrun it. He urged his horse toward a distant cluster of rocks, seeking shelter. The wind roared, and dust stung his face, making him squint. As he reached a narrow canyon, he spotted a small wooden cabin tucked between boulders, a rare human structure on this frontier. He dismounted quickly, tethering his horse to a nearby post. The storm was already hammering down with sheets of rain that hissed as they struck the metal roof. He pounded on the cabin door, hoping someone was inside. A soft voice answered from within. "Who's there?" "Apache Scout." "The storm, may I come in?" There was a pause, then the door creaked open. A woman stood there, tall but slender, her dark hair falling over her shoulders. Her eyes were wide with fear and caution. "You can? Come in," she said softly. Inside, the cabin was small but tidy. A simple fire crackled in the corner, casting shadows along the walls. Tay shook the rain from his cloak and let his eyes adjust. The woman moved aside and he stepped in. "I'm Leora," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't expect anyone tonight." "I'm Tay," he replied. "The storm caught me by surprise. I didn't know where to go." There was something in his eyes, strength, calm, and the kind of alertness only someone who had survived the desert could have. Tay noticed a scar along her arm, small but deep, evidence that she had faced danger before. The fire warmed them both as they shared silence. Outside, the storm raged, wind howling and rain pounding against the cabin. Inside, the space felt small, intimate. Tay couldn't explain it, but he felt a strange pull toward her, a connection that went beyond words. "I don't get many visitors," Leora said, finally breaking the silence. "Most people avoid this part of the plains." "I usually keep to the trails," Taya said. "But storms change plans." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes they bring people together." Leora looked down, brushing her hair from her face. "Maybe they do." They sat near the fire, talking quietly. Tay told her about his patrols, the dangers he had faced, and the alien creatures that roamed the plains. Leora listened with fascination, occasionally asking questions. Her curiosity was genuine, and he found himself relaxing, sharing stories he had only told to the desert wind. Hours passed. The storm outside seemed endless, yet inside the cabin a warm silence grew between them. At one point, their hands brushed as they reached for the same cup of water. Both paused, eyes meeting. There was an unspoken understanding, a spark that neither could ignore. The night grew deeper, and the wind shook the cabin walls. Taye rose to check the door, ensuring it was secure against the storm. When he returned, Leora was standing closer, her expression a mixture of fear and trust. I don't usually let strangers near me," she whispered. "I don't usually find myself here," Taye replied, stepping closer. "But tonight, it feels like I'm meant to be." Her breath caught, and she looked away for a moment. Then she met his gaze again, and the unspoken pull grew stronger. They leaned closer, the warmth of the fire and the storm outside blending into the quiet intensity of the room. In that moment, nothing else mattered. The plains, the storm, the dangers beyond the cabin walls. Only the connection between them existed, their hands intertwined, and they shared a quiet, tender closeness, a night that would change both their lives forever. When dawn finally broke, the storm had passed. Light spilled into the cabin, painting everything in soft gold. Ty awoke to find Leora asleep near the fire. He studied her, realizing that their bond, forged in a single night, was stronger than he could have imagined. Not wanting to disturb her. Outside, the desert was calm, the wind gentle, and the air fresh. Ty mounted his horse, feeling a pang of longing he hadn't expected. He looked back at the cabin once, then rode off, leaving no trace of his presence except the memory of a night shared in trust and warmth. For Leora, the night would not be forgotten. For Ty, it became a part of him, carried silently through each patrol, each lonely stretch of the alien plains. Neither knew that the consequences of that night would appear 3 years later in a way neither could have predicted. The plains stretched endlessly, and Taiye's horse moved steadily, carrying him toward the next horizon. Somewhere out there, life continued, shaped by courage, by connection, and by moments that changed the course of destiny. The wind carried whispers of the past, hints of what was yet to come, and the unbroken sky promised adventures, challenges, and secrets that only the desert could hold. Taiye didn't know it yet, but the night with Leora had planted the seed of a future neither of them could foresee, a future that would arrive in the form of a small, curious child. And as the twin moons disappeared behind the cliffs, Taiye felt a strange mix of hope and longing. He had survived countless dangers, yet nothing in his life had prepared him for the unexpected ties that bind people together across time, space, and distance. The first part of their story ended not with closure, but with anticipation. The plains were vast, the frontier unforgiving, and life always found a way to bring people back together, no matter the years or the challenges that lay ahead. 3 years had passed since that stormy night. The alien plains had changed little, but the lives of those who walked them had shifted in ways no one could have predicted. Taiye rode through the canyon trails, his horse's hooves making soft thuds against the cracked alien rocks. He had grown taller, stronger, and more skilled with every patrol. Settlers respected him, some feared him. Yet, even with all his achievements, a quiet emptiness lingered inside him. Memories of the night with Leora haunted him. He had thought of her often, wondering where she was, whether she had found safety, whether life had treated her well. But life on the frontier was unforgiving. Alien raiders, sudden storms, and the endless struggle to survive left little room for thoughts of the past. Tay focused on the present, moving from settlement to settlement, protecting the people, and tracking the dangers that roamed the plains. Meanwhile, Leora had built a quiet life on the outskirts of the colony. She had never shared her past with anyone, not even the settlers she traded with. She raised a son, Arn, in a small cabin surrounded by alien scrub and jagged rocks. Arn was curious, fearless, and clever beyond his years. His dark hair curled slightly, like Tay's, and his eyes held a keen intelligence that made Leora both proud and anxious. Arn had grown hearing stories of the frontier, of Apache scouts who could read the land like an open book, of creatures that prowled the deserts under moonlight. Sometimes he imagined himself riding beside these scouts, moving as silently as the wind. Yet he had never met one, until tonight. Tay's patrol brought him closer to Leora's cabin than ever before. Settlers had reported alien raiders near the canyon's edge. He had to investigate. As he followed the trails, he noticed footprints that didn't match the raiders. Small, careful, curious. Arn had been watching from the ridge, fascinated by the rider's precision and the way he handled his horse. The boy followed at a distance, moving like a shadow among the rocks. He admired Taiye's skill, not knowing who he truly was. The boy's movements were sharp, instinctive. Something familiar stirred in Taiye's mind. He slowed his horse, observing. The boy's gestures, the way he scanned the horizon, and the way he carried himself. The signs were subtle but unmistakable. Could it be? Tay shook his head. He had no way of knowing. He urged his horse forward, following the footprints to the edge of the ridge. And there, nestled among the rocks, was a small cabin with smoke curling from the chimney. He approached slowly, hand resting on his rifle. The door opened and a woman stepped out. Her hair had grown longer, and her face carried the quiet strength of someone who had survived hardships alone. She looked at him with eyes wide and guarded. "Tay," she whispered, her voice trembling. He froze. Leora. After all this time, she stood before him, more radiant than ever, yet changed by the years. "Leora," he said, dismounting slowly. He did not want to startle her. I didn't know you were here."
"I've kept to myself," she replied softly.
Her eyes flicked to the cabin behind her, to the small figure peeking from the doorway. Arn. Taiye's gaze followed, and his breath caught. The boy's sharp eyes, alert stance, and dark features mirrored his own. There was no mistaking it. His instincts screamed the truth he had not yet dared to face. Is he... Tay began, his voice uncertain. Leora nodded. "He is 3 years old. His name is Arn." Tay took a step closer, emotions tightening in his chest. He looked at the boy, then back at Leora. The weight of the past pressed against him, but he forced calm. He looks like me," he said quietly. Leora's lips trembled, but she did not speak. She had waited for this moment, fearing it, yet longing for it. She had raised Arn in safety, away from the dangers of the frontier, hoping one day Taya might return. The sound of movement snapped them out of the quiet. Alien raiders had been spotted near the canyon edge, scouting the colony. Tay's instincts surged. He motioned for Leora to go inside. "Stay in the cabin," he said. "Lock the door. I'll handle this." "No," Leora said, grabbing his arm. "We're together now." "I can't just hide." Tay looked at her, seeing the determination in her eyes. He nodded. "All right." They stepped toward the ridge, Leora close behind him, and Aaron following cautiously. Tay handed the boy a small, reinforced slingshot, a toy weapon, but one that could teach him precision and calm under pressure. Aaron's eyes lit up, and he gripped it tightly, ready to act. The raiders appeared, strange creatures with 6 limbs and glowing eyes. They moved with speed and coordination, unaware of the humans watching them. Tay's rifle fired, precise and controlled, taking down the lead raider. Leora, armed with a simple plasma pistol, covered his flank. Arn crouched behind a boulder, learning how to move quietly, to anticipate, to survive. The battle was tense. The raiders were clever, circling and shifting positions. Tay's instincts guided him, while Leora's calm aim kept them safe. Arn's small hand fired the slingshot, knocking one raider's sensors offline. Together, they worked seamlessly, father, mother, and son, though none had yet acknowledged the full truth of their bond. After the last raider fell, silence returned to the canyon. The wind rustled through the rocks, carrying the scent of burned plasma and alien dust. Tay lowered his rifle, breathing heavily. He looked at Leora, then at Aaron. You were brave," Tay said, finally breaking the quiet. His voice was soft, filled with awe. He's very brave. He's had to be. This land isn't easy for anyone." Tay knelt beside Aaron, who looked up at him with wide eyes. "I'm Tay," he said gently. "Do you know who I am?" Aaron shook his head, unsure. I think we have much to talk about." "You're very special, Arner." The boy blinked, confused yet proud. He didn't fully understand the connection, but he sensed the bond forming between them, a bond born of courage, trust, and shared survival. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Tae, Leora, and Aaron stood together in the quiet canyon, 3 lives converging after years apart. The past had been heavy with secrets and longing, but now the present demanded action, unity, and understanding. "We should get back inside," Leora said, her hand brushing Tae's. "He needs food, warmth, and you need answers, I suppose." The words he wanted to say, apologies, regrets, explanations, could wait. Tonight, survival had given them the chance to reunite, and that was enough for now. Inside the cabin, Aaron warmed by the fire, clutching a small bowl of stew. Leora served quietly, stealing glances at Tae, who sat beside the boy, watching him with a mixture of wonder and disbelief. You are incredible," Tae said finally, to Leora. "I'd never imagined." "I didn't expect you either," Leora admitted. "But life has its ways. He's ours, Tae, and we've kept him safe all this time." Taya looked at Aaron again. The boy's dark eyes held a spark of courage, curiosity, and something deeper, a reflection of the Apache warrior who now faced the realization of fatherhood. The weight of responsibility settled on him, but it was not unwelcome. Outside, the alien wind howled, rustling the rocks and whispering through the canyons. But inside, there was warmth, safety, and the first threads of a family being woven together across the harsh frontier. And as Tay stared into the fire, he realized that the next chapter of his life had begun. It would be full of challenges, dangers, and lessons, but he would no longer face them alone. The plains outside were vast and untamed, but for the first time in years, Tae felt a sense of belonging, anchored not just by duty or survival, but by the lives he now had to protect and the family he never knew he would find. The morning sun spilled pale gold across the jagged plains. The storm of years past had long vanished, but the memories of that night between Tay and Leora still lingered silently between them. Tay had stayed the night, watching Aaron sleep, studying the boy's small face and strong features. There was no doubt in his mind now. This was his son. Leora moved quietly around the cabin, preparing a simple breakfast of roasted tubers and stew. She had grown stronger, hardened by solitude, yet softened by the love she felt for her child. Every glance she gave Aaron reminded her of Tay, of the life they had briefly shared, and of the future they had yet to imagine together. Tay broke the silence. He's remarkable. he said quietly, his voice low, almost reverent. I can see myself in him, my father, my brother, the Apache skills. He's like a part of me I never knew I was missing. Leora paused, meeting his gaze. He's brave because he has to be. And because he feels safe for the first time in his life, with us together. Tae wanted to speak more, to apologize, to explain. But the wind outside carried a warning. The alien raiders were not gone. A sudden flash of movement across the plains caught Tae's eye. He rose quickly, scanning the horizon. Small, dark shapes moved among the rocks, fast and deliberate. The raiders had returned, and this time they were more organized. Inside, Tae said sharply, motioning for Leora and Aaron to take cover. But Leora shook her head, her hand steady on the plasma pistol. We face them together, she said firmly. I'm not hiding from them. Tae nodded, admiration and relief mingling. Together they moved to a vantage point behind a cluster of boulders near the cabin. Aaron crouched beside them, eyes wide but alert. He had seen Tae's skills before, but this was the first time he would witness danger firsthand. The raiders advanced, their glowing eyes scanning the horizon, their limbs moved with a fluid precision, their armor glinting in the sun. Tae and Leora exchanged a brief glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They had survived the desert before. Together they could survive again. Tae fired the first shot, the rifle's pulse ringing across the canyon. A raider fell, its sensors flickering. Leora's aim was sharp and steady, striking another. Aaron watched closely, learning where to move, how to anticipate danger. Tae noticed the boy's courage, the instinct to survive, and a surge of pride filled him. Stay low! Tae shouted as a raider charged toward them. Arn pressed himself behind a boulder, heart pounding but ready. When the raider came close, Arn aimed his small slingshot, hitting the creature's leg with surprising accuracy. It stumbled, giving Tae and Leora the opening they needed. The battle was chaotic. Dust and sand swirled, mixing with the scent of burned plasma. Alien cries echoed off the canyon walls. Yet amidst the chaos, Tae felt a clarity he had never known before. His family, his son, Leora, and he were working as one. Every movement, every decision was focused on keeping each other alive. Arno, though young, moved with courage that startled even Tae. He ducked under a fallen beam, rolling to the side, then sprang up to distract a raider, giving Leora the chance to fire a precise shot. Taya felt a swell of emotion. This boy, his son, had survived the unknown danger bravely and cleverly. The raiders were clever too, regrouping and circling, but Tae's experience in the desert, combined with Leora's calm aim and Aaron's unexpected skill, turned the tide. Slowly, one by one, the raiders fell or retreated. The plains grew silent once more, save for the heavy breathing of the family standing together. Tae lowered his rifle, looking at Aaron. You saved us, he said, awe in his voice. You're extraordinary. Aaron beamed, a mixture of pride and relief washing over him. Leora smiled, placing a hand on her son's shoulder. He's always had it in him, she said softly. He just needed to know it. Tae knelt beside Aaron, studying the boy's face. I should have known, he said quietly. Even from afar I sensed it. You were always part of this land, part of me. Leora's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. We have a lot to talk about, she said, her voice firm but gentle. But tonight, we survive. That is what matters. For a long moment they simply stood together, breathing in the quiet after the storm of battle. Tae felt a deep connection he had never imagined possible. The night they had shared, the years apart, the hardships, they had all led to this moment. His family, forged not only through love but through courage and survival, stood before him. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the plains. The wind whispered through the canyon, carrying the faint scent of wild plants and distant rain. It was a land of danger, yes, but also of beauty and life. And for the first time, Tae saw not just the challenges ahead, but the possibilities. Leora reached out, placing her hand over his. We can rebuild, she said softly. Not just the cabin, not just the land, us, together. Tae nodded, understanding. Together, he echoed. I never imagined I would have a second chance, but here it is in front of me, and I won't let it go. Aaron looked between them, sensing the bond forming, even if he didn't fully understand it. He felt safe, protected, and part of something larger than himself. For him, the plains were no longer just a place of danger. They were a place of connection, of family, and of belonging. They returned to the cabin, securing the doors and windows, but the victory over the raiders had changed more than the day. It had changed them. The fear and distance that had existed for years melted away, replaced by trust, unity, and love. Tay sat with Aaron by the fire, showing him how to clean and maintain the small rifle, explaining its parts and functions. Leora prepared a warm meal, her eyes often glancing at Tay, her expression softening with every look. They were learning each other again, but this time with a sun bridging the gap of years apart. As night fell, the twin moons rose over the canyon, casting silver light across the plains. Tay stepped outside for a moment, looking out over the rugged land he knew so well. For years, he had patrolled these plains alone, facing dangers and surviving, but never truly belonging. Now he had purpose beyond duty, beyond survival. He felt Leora's hand on his shoulder, and he turned to see her standing there, quiet but strong. "We face many storms ahead," she said. "The raiders will return and the plains will test us. But we will face them together." "Yes," Taya replied. "Together." He looked at Arn, asleep now near the fire, and felt a wave of emotion. This boy, small but brave, had changed everything. He was a living reminder of love, of connection, and of the life that could grow even in the harshest deserts. Taya took a deep breath. He could not predict the challenges to come, the dangers waiting beyond the ridges and canyons. But he could face them, not alone, but with his family. The past had led him here. The future, uncertain though it might be, was theirs to shape. And in that quiet moment, under the twin moons, in the endless sky, Taya, Leora, and Aaron found a fragile peace, a moment of calm in a world that demanded courage, resilience, and heart. It was not the end of their journey, but it was a beginning, one that promised hope, unity, and the chance to survive and thrive together. The plains whispered their secrets, the wind carried promises of challenges and discoveries, and the family stood together, ready to face whatever came next. The morning light filtered through the small cabin windows, casting warm stripes across the floor. Outside, the alien plains stretched endlessly, jagged rocks and pale sands catching the glow of the rising twin suns. Taya stepped outside, stretching, feeling the cool morning wind on his face. For the first time in years, he felt truly present, not just surviving the frontier, but alive in a way he had never known. Leora joined him, carrying a small basket of food. She handed it to him with a quiet smile, her eyes meeting his with unspoken understanding. "Arn is awake," she said. "He's been waiting for us." Taya nodded, his heart tightening. He had spent so long chasing the unknown, patrolling the plains, facing danger alone, that he had almost forgotten what it felt like to belong somewhere, to someone. Now with Leora and Aaron, he understood. Home wasn't just a cabin or a settlement. It was them. Inside, Aaron was already busy, moving quietly around the cabin, tidying small things. His small hands worked with precision, a reflection of both his mother's careful guidance and his father's instinctive skills. This is what I saw. When he saw Taya, his eyes lit up, a mix of recognition and excitement. "Good morning," Taya said, kneeling to meet his son's gaze. "Did you sleep well?" Arn nodded eagerly. "I dreamed about the plains." "About riding like you." Tay chuckled softly. "You'll ride better than me one day." "I can tell already." The boy beamed. Leora watched, her heart full, seeing the bond forming between father and son in real time. She had spent years protecting Aaron, raising him alone, but now the boy had someone to guide him, someone to teach him the ways of the land, and the strength to face whatever came next. After breakfast, Tay and Leora stepped outside together. The plains were quiet, but the recent skirmish with the raiders reminded them that danger always lingered. Yet for the first time, Taya did not feel the weight of loneliness pressing on his shoulders. He had his family with him, and that made him stronger than any weapon or skill he possessed. "We need to prepare," Ty said, scanning the horizon. "The raiders may return. They'll test this land again." Leora nodded. "We're ready." Together. Aaron watched from the cabin doorway, listening. He had already begun to understand that the frontier was not just a place of play or exploration. It was a land of lessons, responsibility, and courage. And he would face it alongside his parents, learning what it meant to survive, to protect, and to live fully. Over the next days, they worked together. Tay taught Aaron how to read the land, the subtle tracks in the sand, the way the wind shifted, how to sense danger before it arrived. Leora instructed him in strategy and observation, teaching him patience and focus. The boy absorbed everything eagerly, a bright spark in the harsh desert world. In the evenings, they gathered near the fire, sharing stories of the plains, of battles fought and victories earned. Taye spoke carefully about the patrols, never frightening Aaron but teaching him respect for the land and its dangers. Leora shared the lessons she had learned while raising him alone, imparting wisdom and kindness alongside caution. One night, under the silver light of the twin moons, Tay and Leora stood together atop a ridge, watching Aaron play in the shallow dunes below. The boy ran, laughing, carrying a small stick like a weapon, imagining himself leading the Apache scouts across the plains. Tay's heart swelled with pride and awe. "She's lucky," Leora said softly, resting her hand on his arm. Tay nodded. I never thought that a night could lead to all this. But it did, and now I won't let it go." Leora smiled, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "We can face the plains together. Nothing will break us, not the storms, not the raiders, not even the years apart." Tay took a deep breath. "Aaron, he will know who he is and where he comes from. He will be strong. He will be brave. And he will have us," Leora added. "Always." The next morning the plains were calm. Taye, Leora, and Aaron rode together, testing Aaron's new skills. The boy followed Tay's guidance, maneuvering his small horse around obstacles, learning the ways of the land. He stumbled a few times, but Tay was there to steady him, to guide him with gentle hands and patient words. Leora watched, proud and hopeful, seeing the family come together in motion, in harmony with the land. As the sun climbed, distant shapes appeared on the horizon. The raiders. But this time Tay did not feel fear or doubt. He had his family, and they were ready. Leora and Tay exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. They would face the threat together, and they would protect their home and Aaron at all costs. The raiders advanced, but the family was prepared. Tay's precise aim, Leora's strategic planning, and Aaron's keen instincts allowed them to outmaneuver the attackers. They moved as one father, mother, and son, united by trust, skill, and love. The battle was fierce but short, the raiders retreating once they realized the family was not weak. After the skirmish, they returned to the cabin, hearts racing but safe. Aaron's eyes sparkled with excitement, having faced danger and survived. He had proven his bravery, and Taya felt a surge of pride unlike anything he had ever known. Sitting together near the fire, the three of them shared quiet laughter and relief. The hardships of the frontier had tested them, but they had endured. Tay looked at Leora, seeing the strength, wisdom, and care she had given to Aaron. He felt a deep gratitude and love that words could not capture. "I promise," Tay said softly, looking at both of them. "We'll face whatever comes, together, always." Leora placed her hand over his. "Always," she echoed. And in that moment, under the pale moons and the endless sky, they understood what it meant to be a family. Not just by blood, but by choice, by love, and by shared courage. The frontier was vast and unpredictable, but they had each other. They had survived storms, raiders, and years apart. Now they were united, not just by the past, but by the life they would build together. As night fell, Aaron slept between them, exhausted but happy. Tay and Leora sat outside, watching the stars appear, the alien constellations shining bright above the plains. They spoke quietly, making plans, dreaming of adventures yet to come, and imagining a future shaped by love, courage, and unity. The plains whispered their secrets. The wind carried soft promises, and the family felt a sense of belonging they had never known. The past had been difficult, the present challenging, but the future, together, was theirs to shape. And so, under the twin moons of the alien frontier, Tay, Leora, and Aaron began their life anew. They were no longer defined by fear or distance, by storms or battles fought alone. They were defined by each other, by the strength of their bond, and by the courage to face whatever came next, side by side, heart by heart. The frontier stretched before them, endless and wild, yet no longer lonely. Together they would write their story, exploring the deserts, surviving the dangers, and embracing the joys of family, love, and life on the alien plains. For Tay, the father, the Apache scout, the protector, life had given him a gift he never expected. For Leora, the mother, the survivor, the guide, life had given her a partner and a son. And for Aaron, the child, the spark of hope, life had given him a family, a home, and the chance to be brave in a world that demanded courage. The twin moons reflected their faces, serene and determined, as the wind whispered through the rocks and the plains awaited their next adventure. Together, they were unstoppable, unbreakable, and united. And in that unity, the frontier, harsh, beautiful, and untamed, was theirs to face, together.